Oh, am I? All right. I was asked by the conference organizers not to attend in person this morning due to credible threats against the conference organizers and myself. I do apologize for the inconvenience to you in attendance. This is not the first time that this has happened to me. I have a doctorate degree in making enemies, and I have been at war with many government agencies and governments themselves, including the Belizean government for the past 8 years, one of the most corrupt governments in the world, in Central America, virtually controlled by the Sinaloa cartel. I've embarrassed or called out virtually every U.S. government agency, debated the FBI on CNN 2 years ago when they illegally tried to force Apple to put a backdoor in the iPhone. I've been at war with the SEC for almost 2 years and have disclosed the contents of an SEC subpoena against SEC orders. I've written articles, numerous articles throughout the years opposing the NSA, the CIA, and virtually every covert agency within the U.S. government. And I recently began a campaign against the overreaching power and arrogance of the centralized exchanges within the crypto community. So, and these are just a few of my potential enemies. Now, many of you may think that this is all bullshit. But let me remind you, you live in a world where half the world believes that Hillary Clinton has people whacked and removed with regularity. And people on the other side of the aisle believe the same thing about many Republicans, that they have the power to just have people removed. And certainly, you cannot deny that there are people who simply disappear or killed or die under very strange and suspicious circumstances. So the reality of our world is this. We live in a world where federal agents can descend upon a small town in the state of Washington and harass, arrest, or remove residents who oppose this regulation or that regulation. We live in a world where farmers, for example, in Oklahoma City, can park a truck filled with explosives and destroy an entire federal building, killing hundreds of people. And again, people disappear and die under strange circumstances all the time. If you live a life that involves getting up in the morning and driving to your office and sitting for 8 hours in an airless environment, coming home and having dinner, you do not see these things. If you live a life outside that box, where I'm poking with the hornet's nest constantly, then I see this every day, and this is my life. And why do I do this? Because it's just who I am. If I see something that's wrong, truly wrong, that affects not just me, but everybody, potentially my children, grandchildren, your children, then I stand up, I point a finger, I say something, I fight. And as a result, I do in fact have enemies. So the biggest enemy that I have today is the entire world. I am one of the outspoken leaders of the crypto community, and I'm very outspoken. And what does the crypto community represent? It represents a major threat to the existing power structure, not just within governments, but within banks, within businesses. Every aspect of the current society where someone has power in this pyramidal arrangement, that is, a centralized structure, is threatened by cryptocurrencies. Because if it is accepted worldwide and becomes a standard, then suddenly what happens? Governments are no longer able to collect revenue through taxes because they are no longer able to find out who is doing what, with whom and when, and how much is involved. Banks will virtually disappear unless they change their ways. The existing power structure in every aspect will be turned upside down. Now, if you think this does not scare people, then you simply haven't been reading the press or haven't been watching. You've been asleep, because it does scare people. It scares banks, governments, anyone in the existing power structure is fighting. Why? Nobody wants to lose what has taken an entire lifetime or sometimes generations to build. And they're not going to go quiet. And I've said this in the very beginning. We are at war and have been at war ever since the white paper for Bitcoin was first released. And that war is one that's mathematically controlled, mathematically certain. Cryptocurrencies is the Pandora's box that has been opened. And everything that came from that is not going to go back into that box, no matter what happens. No matter what happens. And so we have been, there's been no shots fired, no blood left, but the war is there nevertheless. If you doubt it, look at the comments of Jamie Dimon, the chairman of our largest bank, states, the Bitcoin is a fraud, on and on and on. These are just the opening salvos of this war. The biggest problem that we face is that the distributed nature of cryptocurrency allows us to go peer-to-peer with everything. The transactions. I want to buy something with Bitcoin, I don't go through the bank. I simply call the person and say how much. I get a wallet address, I transfer the money, I get my goods. The problem we have is that centralized exchanges still exist. And it's centralized exchanges that must disappear before we can be totally free to be who we are. That is cryptocurrency enthusiasts, where we get to choose our currency. We're not told by a government what currency we can use. We're not told by a bank what currency we can use. We get to choose. If we want privacy, we choose a privacy coin. If we want something that's virtually free, we choose a coin with very low transaction costs. If we want something that retains a value, we pick and choose those that we think will retain their value. But it's up to us. We have that freedom of choice when crypto is complete and universally accepted. So the centralized exchanges are our weak point. See, governments cannot cut down or cannot stop the transactions between two people who are buying something with Monero, for example. Virtually complete privacy. They know who neither the originator nor the receiver of the transaction, the nature of the transaction, the amount of the transaction, nothing. So that's great. But at some point, we need to transfer to some other currency. And for that, we need the exchanges. For example, we want some fiat currencies. We need to buy bread at the local grocery store that does not accept Bitcoin. So this is our weakness, because centralized exchanges exist in the real world in some location or other. If the exchanges in China, as the exchanges were a year and a half ago, when China shut them all down, then it's very easy. You can turn off the electricity to the building, or simply go in the building and arrest everybody, or destroy the machines. So having a truly decentralized currency, a truly decentralized system with centralized exchanges creates a weakness where governments can, in fact, shut us down. Now, decentralized exchanges are coming, and they're coming with greater and greater frequency and greater utility. When we have truly decentralized exchanges, then we will be totally free from the threat of government intervention, of them stopping us, of government regulation, free from everything, free to choose ourselves what we wish to do with our currency. However, until that happens, we are stuck with a situation where the most corrupt power structures are not those outside the crypto world, but those inside the crypto world. If you doubt that, then you simply have not been using exchanges. They have enormous power. You can put your money in, they can choose to do what they want in terms of time. They may not give you money back for months, or maybe not at all. I think that the greatest offender of all of our exchanges is the hit BTC. We've had hundreds upon hundreds of complaints. They don't even bother to respond. It's just like their support does not exist. It's almost like a vacuum into which you put your tokens or your money, and it simply disappears, and that's it. And many of these exchanges are obviously scams. We have to fix this problem, and we have to fix it now, else we're going to sink. The end of the story. We have to support those projects and those organizations that are building truly distributed exchanges. Support them in any way possible to make sure that we end up in control rather than being in control. Because to have a cryptocurrency that is still controlled internally by centralized exchanges has done nothing. It's really taking money from one corrupt structure and putting it into another corrupt structure. And in the interim, the centralized exchanges have to be responsive to us, to the users. Even though they are impossible to control from a user standpoint, they still exist somewhere. Many of them exist in governments where they are protected legally from any sort of recourse, where we can't sue them, we can't even find them. We try to find the name of the CEO of HitBTC, I define it, or the location, I define it. This is very frightening to me, and it should be to all of you, that our currency is dependent upon these exchanges that have become so powerful that they are just as corrupt as the system that we are fighting. So this is one of the things I wanted to make people aware of. We have to move to decentralized exchanges, which means, what is a decentralized exchange? It is an exchange where there is no central server. There is no location you can go to point to the exchange. It's a collection of tens of millions of people, all with their smartphones or their computers or their laptops, acting as a part of that exchange. So if one or two of these people are removed, or one or two of these laptops are removed, or even if hundreds or thousands or even millions are removed, it has absolutely no effect on the exchange process. It is still there, it's still functioning. It is not located in any one country, in any one building, in any one person. It is not controlled by any one agency. It is purely decentralized peer-to-peer exchange. Now, a very powerful concept, very difficult to implement, and there are many that are implementing this process as we speak. They must be supported, we must move to them, and we must abandon the centralized complex that we have today, taking away the power, the enormous power that exists. So the most important thing is to wrap your head around the total system. Those of you who use Bitcoin or Ethereum to buy things, you're perfectly happy with the fact that you're buying this, you're buying that, and you get your goods. But at some point, you're going to want some money back in fiat or in some other currency you want to exchange something. And at that point, you have lost control. You've totally lost control, and you are now in the power of the centralized exchange structure. So the way I used to, and the way I continue to do these talks is I briefly, ramble on as I've been doing for a few minutes, and then ask for questions from the audience, which tends to fill up a great deal of time and focuses, I think, more importantly on your issues that you would like to talk about. So if there's a microphone somewhere, it might be passed around. I'd be happy to start talking or answering questions. If not, I'll just ramble on forever. So let's see if someone has a question. Is there a hand raised? I see one. I see quite a few. Is there a microphone? Or do you want to get up and just yell your question? Or anybody in support can help here?
Oh, no, I mean looking for. Oh, there we are.
Hi, I have a question. You are mentioning that everyone should be switching to decentralized exchanges. However, there's a number of issues with this, largely because when you have a pure decentralized exchange like an atomic swap, you're not necessarily getting the information you need to meet KYC, AML, anti-money laundering regulations, and informational reporting requirements. And this is creating a lot of risk for the individuals who are participating in decentralized exchanges? And how do you suggest this is addressed across the industry?
Well, I'm perfectly happy with no one finding out about this thing. If someone's laundering money, well, it isn't my problem. It's not your problem. You know, it really isn't the government's problem. The problem is that the government is missing out on taxes. Pure and simple as that. I could care less whether the governments collect their taxes. I think taxation is illegal. And certainly by our Constitution here in America, it's illegal, even though it is done. So these reporting requirements are the things we're trying to avoid. Why should I have the obligation to report to anyone what I'm doing with my own money? I mean, I made that money with the sweat of my own brow, and I can choose to do with it what I wish. Why should I have to report?
It's not just about that, though. What about terrorism or child pornography? Should that be supported and there be no regulations to prevent the monetary supply from moving in those areas?
Well, do you think that they don't exist today? Do you think terrorism does not exist in the beyond system? Do you think that child pornography does not exist? You cannot connect those things with the monetary system. The fact that you can move money from here to there in a way that can't be seen exists today. I mean, with fiat currencies, that's what money laundering is. It's pure and simple. Taking money that can be traced, and in the end, taking money that can't be traced. So you can't stop child pornography, you can't stop terrorism by changing or altering your currency. You only do that by altering the nature of the human animal, and good luck with that. Any other questions?
My question is, do you think there could ever be a blockchain world election for the government that's a world government decentralized through the internet, where eventually there will be enough followers that government could succeed?
Wow, that's a heavy question. And it involves a bunch of assumptions. Number one, that we get to all speak the same language, because I cannot see a world government with disparate languages. Because if we're watching our leader speak, and our leader is speaking Afghan, and I speak Portuguese, then I'm not going to be able to understand anything about this. So it involves, number one, language. It involves, number two, the cooperation of people of disparate religious, cultural, and political beliefs. We've been trying, I think, for centuries to get to that point. We have the United Nations now. Has it actually united the world? No. It's a huge problem, and a problem that I don't think is going to be solved in my lifetime or yours, nor for many generations. As to could the blockchain be applied to that? Of course. But first we need to get to that, and I don't see that happening anytime soon.
So Bitcoin started as a great idea and brought a freedom to everybody, like the idea was a freedom. But now cryptocurrencies become a tool for a lot of speculation, and a lot of people lost money. And people can get away from it. Is there any way to fix it or prevent it, or what do you think?
Yep. Yes, absolutely. And the way to fix it and prevent it is to understand what the purpose is. When Bitcoin was first envisioned, all the cryptocurrencies that came out, there was a function for it. It was a currency, a medium